The Word from the Third podcast is brought to you by Torfaen Voluntary Alliance. Hello, I'm Patrick Downs. Welcome to Word from the Third. We'll be taking a look at all the big stories and news from the third sector here in Torfaen. Celebrating Trustees Week. What exactly is a trustee? Do you need one for your organisation? What do they do? How do you go about becoming a trustee? All those questions and more as we talk with some of Torfaen Voluntary Alliance's board members, our very own trustees. Firstly, let's talk with our treasurer, Professor Malcolm Prowell, about his background and why he became a trustee.
Yeah, sure. Well, my background is in the finance and economics of public services, really. So I've worked in health and local government. I worked with two of the big consultancy firms for many years, and I've worked in several universities over a period of years. During that time, I've had contact with various third sector and community organisations, be it like a volunteer, fundraising, or helping to organise events, or all these sorts of things. So I've always had a fair knowledge of the importance of the third sector. About a year ago, I was invited to join the board of TVA, which is really my first experience of the board of a third sector organisation.
Why did you want to become a trustee?
I think really it was a conjugation of events. I don't work full time anymore. I still do work at a couple of universities, but I had a bit of spare time on my hands, and I'd always been attracted to doing something to support the third sector. And to be honest, I did contact a few organisations, see if they could make use of my skill bits. People usually like to have somebody with a financial background, but I did not get any response, quite honestly. And then I knew the former chair of TVA, the late Lynn, and she knew me well, and she asked if I'd be interested in joining the board, and it went from there. And then it was almost bound to happen, basically, because of my background. I was soon made the treasurer of the organisation as well.
Yeah, so what do you think your working life can bring to being a trustee?
My working life? Well, I have a lot of knowledge of public services, particularly health and local government, and the reality is, of course, that a lot of what the third sector does tends to be inextricably involved with public services, particularly at the current time with COVID. There is obviously a lot of interface between the third sector and the statutory sector. So I bring that knowledge, and as I said, I don't think I mentioned earlier on, I have done some consultancy work in a number of third sector organisations as well. So I brought some of the knowledge there, and of course what I do bring is a very strong financial background. That turns a lot of people off, but at the end of the day, it is essential that third sector organisations remain financially solvent, because if you get your finances in a bit of a mess, you could well be in trouble.
Finally, really, why do you think it's important for people with the right background to be a trustee?
Well, when you say the right background, there are many right backgrounds, of course. I happen to bring a financial background. My experience of working in third sector organisations, although I said I've done a bit, it's certainly not as deep as many other members of the board who've been, very much deeply involved with a number of different third sector organisations. So there are a variety of backgrounds one can have, but certainly that doesn't mean you shouldn't be a trustee. You can learn about the organisation, but it's important that you do understand what being a trustee means and what are the duties you have to fulfil. This is a podcast from Torfaen Voluntary Alliance.
Next up is a new trustee to our board, Angela Jones. Angela, tell me a little bit about your background.
I have worked in education and training all of my life, and I've always been a great advocate of volunteering. From both sides, really, what organisations can get out of volunteers, but also the new skills, experience and confidence that volunteers can gain from accessing opportunities. I've been in contact with volunteering organisations, as I say, throughout my working life. So when I saw this opportunity to become a trustee, I just see it as my way of maybe helping in building the profile of volunteering within Torfaen, encouraging people to access opportunities.
So your background then is volunteering from, I would say, both sides?
Both sides, yeah.
What importance do you think trustees have within an organisation, whether they bring their skills from the outside in?
I think it's always useful on any board to have a variety of viewpoints. So I think somebody coming in from the outside, this is very new to me being involved in TVA. However, I've been on lots of boards previously, and I do think it's important for that exchange of viewpoints and ideas, and people who are not afraid to speak up if they don't agree with something, or to sort of make their voice heard, or if there's something that they're quite passionate about and they want to support. So I do think that I have those experiences and skills to bring to this board, perhaps.
So it is the skill set you have from your day-to-day life, bringing that in and kind of helps you guide an organisation.
Absolutely. It's important. It's volunteering in another form, really, isn't it? Because I'm volunteering to be a trustee, and I presume that I will learn new skills from that. However, I think the organisation will also benefit from me bringing my existing skills to the board. So it's a perfect example of how volunteering works.
This podcast is produced by TVA, Torfaen Voluntary Alliance. And finally, on this special Trustee Week edition of Word from the Third, catch up with another of our new board members, Robert Jones, and his background here in Torfaen.
Yes, certainly. I was born in New Inn, and I lived here for the first 30 years of my life. I worked for Burton's Biscuits down in Cwmbran, and then moved up to their head office in '86, and lived in England from then until 2004, when I retired and came back and took over a post of Chief Executive of Welsh Swimming. Swimming's been my hobby, and I've been a coach at Pontypool Dolphins, coached the Welsh team and some British teams, and I've been very lucky to go to Commonwealth and Olympic Games.
You've done quite a lot then, really.
Swimming coach, manager, to become a chief executive of the governing body, basically. I've also maintained my role with Burton's as the chairman of their trustee fund. So yeah, I've tried to keep involved. Now I'm retired from full-time work. I'm hoping to do some work locally that will help organisations, charities within Gwent, I suppose I would call it in those days. So I'm a trustee of a hospice. As I say, I've got the pension scheme, and I look after two of the New Inn community groups. And now I've joined yourselves with at TVA.
The question I suppose I'm asking is why did you want to become a trustee?
Well, living away, I'm coming home, and I've always classified this as home. When I came back, I wanted really to put something back out on your website, actually, saying that we're looking for trustees, and I have a certain amount of understanding in how they carry out through their association, through the articles and memorandum of understandings, etc. And being local, I really wanted to put something back into Torfaen.
It does kind of answer my question already, really, but what do you think your work in life can bring to being a trustee?
I ended up as financial controller of Burton. During my time with them, I managed to get some grant from the Welsh office, as it was in those days, for the factory in Cwmbran. And in fact, we got the factory open by obtaining grants. But that was part of the reason I found how difficult it was to get grants. And it introduced me to something called a grant finder in those days, which thousands and thousands of these grants. But it takes a lot for somebody to go through them and try and sort out which is right for the communities. And I'm really pleased to see that you at TVA have done that and are doing it and are supporting local organisations to achieve applications. And the one I'm involved with is New Inn Community Hall, and about 18 months ago we had to rebuild the wall onto the main road, and it was through help through the MP and the MS and yourself, we managed to get some grant aid to assist us to build it. So I thought, well, that's giving us something. I think we should try and give something back.
Finally, what advice would you give to somebody who's thinking about becoming a trustee?
One should realise there are responsibilities with becoming a trustee. You have responsibilities, governance, and also the charity's terms and involvement with the vision of the charity, and ensuring that people like yourselves who are employed by the organisation are able to run the business for us and help wherever possible.
What do you think is important for people to become a trustee?
My view is they should use the skills that they have to enhance the availability of whatever they're involved with, the charity they're involved with or can be involved with. And we all have personal skills that are really of use to everybody, and let's use them more. And I'm thinking that my past experience with volunteer, especially WCVA, which when I was with swimming in an amateur role, volunteer role, then we used them quite significantly. So it's putting something back into what we've managed to pull out, I suppose, from charities and that type of thing.
Robert, thank you very much for this today. And that wraps up this edition of The Word from the Third, the Trustee Week edition. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about being a trustee, or if you want more information, get in touch with us. And that's it for now. Thanks for checking us out. I'm Patrick Downs. This is The Word from the Third. And don't forget, if you want to contact TVA, Torfaen Voluntary Alliance, for anything regarding the third sector here in Torfaen, get in touch regarding funding, volunteering, any kind of support or governance. info@tvawales.org.uk. You can also find us on social media on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter at TVA Torfaen. Or of course on the website, it's all there at www.tvawales.org.uk. This podcast is produced by TVA, Torfaen Voluntary Alliance.